Hi. In my most recent blog, I was reflecting on the attractiveness quotient of height, especially in women's preference for dating men. So many times I have heard, and I am just curious about it. I have heard women say, I could not date someone shorter than me. Or even someone who's 5'6" says, oh, I couldn't date somebody who is less than 6 feet. Like, that's considerably taller, right? And I ask, why? What's about that? Oh, it's my preference. It's just my preference. And I've even, sometimes people are a little more willing to talk about it. I say, why is that your preference? And they're like, well, I just feel safer. Somebody that's taller, that's bigger than me, it feels better. And I totally get that, because our culture has been showing us that in heterosexual relationships, a man is taller than the woman. Every photograph you see of a wedding, an advertisement, and or a movie that you see, or where there's a romantic couple. And if it's not the case, the height of the man is an issue. It's brought up. It's a punchline. I raised 3 boys that, they're men now, and we had the tradition, and maybe you can relate to this, where every so often they would line up, and then they'd stand up against the wall with their heels against the wall, and we'd put the ruler on their head, and we'd mark where they're at and put the date and their age and their name or whatever. And that was a really sweet, precious time for me as a mom. But what I noticed, it was a competition. My kids were very close in age. 3 of them within 4 years, and they're about less than 2 years apart. And so it was a competition. Just who can eat the most. It was a competition. And there are many things that they could learn and have skills, and maybe run faster or score more goals, or those are things that maybe we can learn to do better or have skills. And there's a healthy competition there. But height, where did that come from? I never ever said the person who's taller is better, but they had this belief, right? They had this belief, and it came from somewhere, and they, were just children. So where were they seeing it? In our culture. And the reality is, in our culture, people that are men specifically is what this is about, are promoted more in business. More men that are taller, more are CEOs of companies, because there is something, this is where the harmful part of it is, that is telling us that height means smarter, means stronger, means better. It might mean in some ways a bigger person with more muscles is stronger. But evolution, back in the day when we needed someone stronger to fight off wild animals or something, or be strong and literally build our homes, or swim in the ocean or whatever, different then. But those things carried into our culture. And then it's so interesting that preference, we relate, I think I'm just curious about it. We relate it's my preference. And so I'm not saying we're wrong for having preferences. I'm just saying be curious about where that came from. We have bias, poured into us and we don't even realize it. And another one is hair length. In our culture, and I'm just pointing this out just to kind of make a comparison, but if you have a 6, 7, 8-year-old, 2 kids on the same soccer team, they're wearing the same uniform, and one has long hair and one has short hair, and maybe you see them from the back, what do you assume, right? Culturally, we just go long hair, oh, that must be a girl. And that is because that is what our culture, meaning everything around us, has conditioned us to think that. And I can give you a real world example. One of my kids, he had long hair up until like 3rd or 4th grade. And he also had a gender neutral name. And many times people said to me, oh, your daughter, because of his hair and because of his name, that the name might have given it away. And if they didn't know his name, right? This is just me pointing out that, it's not wrong or bad. It's just, that has been programmed. We've been programmed to think that. And so for height as attractiveness, we might not want to or have to change our preference. I'm not saying that. But I think what I like to do with people is be curious about why that is. Is it because there is a cultural bias that men should be bigger than women should be dainty? So I wrote about this in my blog. If you want to read a little bit more about this, I'll link it below, and just be curious. I think that's the message that I have here today. Is there's so many programming that happens to us, the narratives that we have about how life should look, what family looks like, what a CEO looks like, what a mom looks like. All that is programmed into us from an early age. And when we can stop and just go, I'm a little curious about that. Why do I think that? That is gonna just make your life richer. I think that's what we want. We want a more rich life where we can think about why we think a certain way. And I think also it's going to make our lives, we're going to be able to see, it's going to open up our eyes to things that we may not even have paid attention to before. Other cultures, other people doing things differently. And I think that is always a good thing. So thank you so much. Check out my blog. See you next time.